It's been 1 week now since the first cohort of ISIS brides were repatriated back to Australia. 4 women and 13 children arrived in Sydney after being detained in Syrian detention camps for almost 4 years. More women and children are expected to arrive to settle in New South Wales and Victoria. But with radio silence from the government, from the Albanese government, a complete lack of details, the communities where these women and children are likely to end up have accused the government of playing politics. Joining me now is one of those leaders from Western Sydney, Cumberland City Councillor Steve Christou. Steve, always great to see you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Rowan.
You've warned before that before they repatriated the ISIS brides, that they might be, quote, dumped in Western Sydney, which appears to be kind of what's happened. Has anyone from the federal government been in contact with you, Steve?
Absolutely not. There's been radio silence and we haven't heard anything, just crickets. The other day I picked up the phone and I dialed one of the local federal members that represent Cumberland, Mr Andrew Charlton, on Thursday morning, and I asked him if he could organise a community forum with our council and relevant community leaders to let us know what's happening. He'd said to me he'd make some inquiries. As of yet, I haven't heard anything back from him.
Many members, Steve, of your community have, and this is the great irony, have escaped the tyranny of the Islamic State and other Islamist forces to come to Australia, Yazidis and others. How on earth do they feel?
They feel absolutely betrayed and stabbed in the back. You're quite right. We have the second most diverse community in New South Wales. We have the Yazidis and many other people from refugee backgrounds that have come to Australia to live a more peaceful and productive life. Now they feel betrayed, they're absolutely terrified, and they're saying, we don't want to live in a community with people that have committed terrorist acts, and basically, why did we flee our country and come to Australia if you're going to place a terrorist and violent people back into our community and into our lives? It's an absolute betrayal. I don't know what this government is thinking. They're probably the most treacherous and unpatriotic government in recent memory, and I just don't know why they're doing this, not only to Australians, but to our community. We just don't need it.
And I imagine the trauma. I mean, it's impossible, Steve, to imagine how that would affect you, seriously. Anyway, on a slightly more mercenary note, the taxpayers, New South Wales taxpayers, are paying for the federal government's mission to return ISIS brides to Australia. I mean, is that the best use of our money when we seem to be struggling to have any?
Well, that's just it. We have a scenario where we've had 7 to 8 interest rate rises in a row now. Petrol's at an all-time high. Grocery prices are basically unaffordable. People are struggling to pay the mortgage, the rent, the bills, and put food on the table to feed their children. And you would have thought that our federal government would have had more important issues to address and help its population, rather than sending back ISIS brides, taking them with open arms, come to Australia, the country of welfare, putting them on priority welfare, priority housing assistance, and taking the position and place from people that have been waiting for housing assistance for 12 to 15 years. It's absolutely unthinkable and an absolute stab in the back to these people. Good Australian tax-paying people have been absolutely betrayed by this Australian government to bring back some treacherous and unpatriotic people that gave up their citizenship and their way of life. They denounced the oath they took under Section 35 of the Citizenship Act by, to respect and defend the values of this country.
Steve Christou, I couldn't agree with you more. Keep up the fight on behalf of your constituents out there, and thank you for joining us here on Credlin tonight.